If your words don't create a path, no one will walk it. This single principle transforms every conversation. Most people speak to be understood. Leaders speak to be followed. The distinction is not about decibels. It's about resonance, integrity, direction, and impact. If your speech doesn't inspire trust, your vision is irrelevant. If your language lacks substance, your presence cannot guide. This book is your blueprint for forging a voice that earns authority without aggression. A voice that catalyzes movement without needing applause. A voice that engages the intellect and steers the will. You don't require complex vocabulary. You require consequential language. You don't need to speak longer. You need to speak with greater purpose. Within this framework, you will learn to communicate as someone who merits attention. Concrete, applicable skills for the boardroom, the crucial conversation, and the quiet moment of decision. This is for those ready to lead. Not eventually, but from their next sentence onward. If your language cannot chart a course, nothing else can. The journey begins here. Leadership is born in the commitment behind every syllable. If your speech carries no consequence, you are merely adding to the background static, and static does not inspire change, build allegiance, or command a room. But when you speak with conviction, when each word is placed with deliberate weight, people take notice. They engage. They lean forward. They retain what you say. Conviction is not volume. It is not performance. It means you stand within your words, as if they are an extension of your will. If you do not believe in your own message, you cannot expect anyone else to invest in it. Conviction begins when you cease to preemptively doubt yourself and assume full authorship of every statement you make. Most people speak provisionally, littering their language with escape hatches. I think, maybe, I'm not sure, this might be wrong. With each qualifier, they drain power from their message. The truth is, no one rallies behind a hesitant voice. No one commits to a shaky proposition. To speak as a leader, you must decide that your words are consequential. You must mean what you say exactly what you mean, and stand fully within that declaration. When you speak, people should feel your solidity. They should sense that your language is not merely conversation, but a reflection of your core. It is what you represent. How is this achieved? Start by auditing your daily speech. Most people talk from habit. A leader speaks from intention. You do not waste language. You do not meander. You do not dilute. You speak with clarity, authenticity, and a presence that communicates, I have earned this audience. This conviction is also forged in preparation. Uncertainty breeds a faltering voice. Leaders prepare. They reflect, clarify, and distill their thoughts so that when they speak, they are not constructing in real time. They are unveiling. Their words carry power because they have been tempered in the fire of prior thought. Furthermore, conviction solidifies when your actions are a perfect echo of your speech. If your behavior contradicts your language, people will discern the dissonance, and eventually, so will you. You cannot speak as a leader if you do not live as one, for people will always trust your example over your explanation. When your life validates your language, confidence is not an act, it is your earned state. Stop apologizing for your perspective. Stop diminishing your message to accommodate comfort. Leaders do not speak to be liked. They speak to be clear. They speak to direct. If you are preoccupied with perception, you will never utter anything of substance. This is not about rudeness or aggression. It is about firmness. It is about authenticity. It means you own your truth, even when it stands alone. When you enter a space and speak, the space should feel it. Not because you are loud, but because you are rooted. People sense when you are not navigating by guesswork, when you have formed conclusions, built principles, and tested ideas. You speak from earned insight, not mere opinion. That is what gives your words gravity. It also requires purging the soft language of self-protection. Eliminate the filler. Eliminate the uncertainty. If you believe something, state it. If you stand for something, declare it. Too many voices are weakened in the pursuit of pleasantness. Leadership is not about pleasantness. It is about speaking what is necessary, especially when it is uncomfortable. A confident speaker is also at peace with silence. The insecure rush to fill every pause, afraid of quiet. The strong communicator knows silence is potent. You state something essential, then you pause. You allow people to hear it, absorb it, feel its weight. You do not rush. You do not plead for validation. You speak what must be said, and you let the silence amplify it. Remember, your voice is your instrument, not your crutch. You do not speak to prove your worth. You speak to serve a purpose, to guide people towards something better. When you understand this, your voice transforms. Your tone shifts. You cease performing and begin leading, because your goal is no longer to impress, but to impact. Speaking as a leader is not about ornate vocabulary or flawless syntax. It is about being clear, certain, and authentic. People respond to that. In a world saturated with noise, authentic voices penetrate. Therefore, the first discipline is this: own every word you speak. Stop outsourcing your authority. Stop preemptively doubting your message. Speak from your center. Speak with unwavering intent. Each time you do, your conviction expands. Your presence deepens. Your capacity to lead grows. For when you own your words, you begin to own your space. You carry a quiet authority. People see it in your bearing, hear it in your timbre, feel it in your energy. You are no longer attempting to sound like a leader. You have become one, and that changes everything. Speak with such precision that misunderstanding is impossible. This is among the most critical disciplines for anyone who wishes to guide, influence, or simply be taken seriously. Clear speech is not about ornamentation, complexity, or sounding impressive. It is about being comprehended. When people understand you, they trust you. When they trust you, they listen. When they listen, momentum begins. But if your message is obscure, the quality of your ideas is irrelevant. Your intelligence is moot. Your intentions are wasted. If your words fail to land, you forfeit connection, respect, and the moment itself. Worse, people will fill the void you left with their own assumptions, and they rarely assume in your favor. Clarity is non-negotiable. If your audience cannot grasp you, your influence evaporates. To speak as a leader is to take complete responsibility for the comprehensibility of your message. You do not dump data and expect others to decode it. You think first. You slow down. You strip away all superfluity. You cease trying to sound intelligent and focus on being understood. This is the foundation of potent communication. Most never learn this. They speak rapidly, meander, assume shared context, skip logical steps, and leave a wake of confusion. Then they wonder why people don't follow, why trust is absent, why teams are misaligned. The reason is simple. Unclear language produces unclear thinking. If people are confused after you speak, the responsibility is yours. What does clarity look like in practice? It begins with knowing your core message before you open your mouth. If your thoughts are disordered, your language will be too. You must refine your ideas. Be specific. Avoid vagueness. State exactly what you mean. If you are giving an instruction, deliver it in a straight line. Do not overcomplicate. Do not try to sound profound. Be direct and true. Clarity demands the excision of words that dilute your point. If you can convey it in 5 words, do not use 15. When you drown your message in verbiage, people disengage. They become overwhelmed. Leaders do not squander attention. They get to the point and remain there. Use language your audience understands. Do not use jargon to signal intelligence. Speak their language. Meet them where they are. If you are guiding your team, explain it in terms that resonate with them. If you are teaching, simplify not because your listeners lack intellect, but because your role is to connect, not to confuse. One of the most powerful tools for clarity is to slow your pace. Rapid speech often signals anxiety and diminishes the power of your words. Sentences blur, key points are missed. A deliberate pace demonstrates control and thoughtfulness. It gives people time to process. Leaders do not rush. They pause. They let their statements settle. That pause draws people in. That pause adds mass to your message. Your tone is also part of clarity. Tone carries meaning that words alone cannot. You can deliver perfect words with the wrong tone, and the message will be misread. Conversely, a simple statement delivered with a resonant tone can strike deeply. Tone is your audible attitude. If it is inconsistent, too flat, too sharp, too tentative, your message loses definition. People won't know what to prioritize. Therefore, you must align your tone with your intent. If the matter is serious, sound serious. If it is aspirational, sound inspired. Do not send mixed signals. Another common error is the attempt to say everything at once. You need not deliver the entire narrative in one breath. Choose your central point and build around it. Adhere to one idea at a time. Make it easy to follow. Allow people time to absorb. Simplicity is not simplistic. It is a strength. The ability to distill a vast concept into essential language is leadership. Sometimes, clarity requires restating your central point. Not 5 times, but once more with even greater focus. Not from insecurity, but to ensure the cornerstone of your message is unmistakable. You state it clearly. You pause. You reaffirm it with certainty. Then you advance, straight ahead, not in circles. Observe your listeners. Watch their eyes, their expressions. Are they confused, distracted, fully engaged? Your words should pull people toward you. If you see them pulling away, adjust in real time. True leaders attend to this feedback. They ask, "Is that clear?" Not as a filler, but as a genuine check. And if the answer is no, they do not defend, they explain again, more effectively. Do not overlook your physical presence. Your message is not only verbal, it is your posture, your gaze, your hands. If your body contradicts your words, people will believe your body. Clarity means your entire being is aligned, standing straight, facing your audience, being fully present. Clarity is a skill earned through daily practice. You do not wait for the high-stakes moment to develop it. You train in everyday exchanges. You practice getting to the point, choosing better words, asking sharper questions, refining your explanations. Leaders hone their message not only in grand speeches, but in every conversation conducted with purpose. Clarity is a choice. Each time you speak, you have the opportunity to build trust or erode it, to guide or to confuse. You have the responsibility to make your message effortlessly understood. Therefore, stop hiding behind complexity. Stop hoping people will decipher your meaning. Stop rushing through your words. Make a new commitment. When you speak, you will speak with crystalline clarity. You will speak with such purpose that no one leaves uncertain of your position or your principles. Speak as if your words are consequential, because they are. Speak as someone who knows their destination. Speak as someone who has done the work and earned the right to be heard. That is how a leader communicates. That is how connection is forged. That is how something real is built. And that is the kind of person others choose to follow. Someone whose message is unmistakable every single time. Master your voice before you presume to guide others. This is not a suggestion. It is a prerequisite. For your voice is more than sound. It is your embodied presence, your attitude, your energy. If your voice is unsteady, your leadership will never be fully trusted. You may possess brilliant ideas, noble intentions, and strong values, but if your voice quavers, wavers, or scatters, people will hesitate to follow. Why? Because people listen not only to what you say, but to how you say it. Leadership is conveyed through your carriage, and your voice is the most immediate broadcast of your internal state. If you are anxious, it is heard. If you are angry, it is heard. If you are uncertain, it is heard. You cannot conceal it. The more internal turbulence you harbor, the more difficult it becomes to speak with strength and direction. Thus, before you step into any role of influence, you must learn to govern your tone, volume, rhythm, and emotional register. A leader does not merely talk, they command attention. Not through volume or talking over others, but through a steady, calm, grounded voice that communicates, "I am not here to impress you. I am here to guide you." This is the distinction. Loud individuals often seek to be noticed. Grounded leaders seek to be understood. When your voice is under command, people feel secure in your presence. They sense you will not snap, panic, or be derailed by emotion. You are steady. That steadiness builds trust. You cannot lead if your voice shakes when you address a challenge. You cannot lead if your tone shifts with your mood. People grow weary of following an unpredictable voice. Unpredictability breeds anxiety, and leadership's purpose is to provide reliable direction, not unease. How do you establish this command? Begin with acute self-awareness. Most people are oblivious to how they sound. They have never critically listened to their own tone, recorded themselves, or identified if they speak too quickly, softly, harshly, or monotonously. This is step 1. Know your sound. Are you clear? Firm? Do you sound like someone who believes their own statements? The more you understand your vocal patterns, the more you can consciously choose your tone, rather than letting your emotions choose it for you. If you're frustrated, you learn not to raise your voice, but to address the issue with calibrated calm. If you're excited, you learn to harness the energy without losing coherence. Leadership demands emotional regulation, and your voice is its primary signal. Breath is your foundational tool. Shallow breathing leads to rushed speech, nervous energy, and shaky delivery. When you deepen and slow your breath, your voice naturally gains strength and resonance. You don't force it, it settles into deliberateness. Before any crucial conversation, center yourself. Breathe. Slow your internal rhythm. Then speak. Command also means knowing when to remain silent. A powerful voice is defined as much by its restraint as by its expression. Speaking from impulse often leads to regret and damage. Train yourself to pause, to think, to listen. You will speak fewer words, but each will carry greater mass. That is the essence of leadership communication. Less language, more meaning. Consider the leaders you most respect. They did not fumble or ramble. They spoke with purpose. Every sentence had a function. Every word was weighted. They were not performing importance. They were grounded in it. This authority does not stem from title or volume, but from inner discipline, a discipline that must be cultivated. Practice your voice as you would any critical skill. Rehearse to refine, not to fake. If you are to speak publicly, prepare not just your content, but your delivery, pacing, and emphasis. Strong leaders do not leave communication to chance. They treat every word, every pause, as a deliberate act of building or steering. Understand that your voice matters in the small moments as much as the grand ones, in one-on-ones, in giving feedback, in navigating conflict. In every exchange, people are subconsciously asking, is this person trustworthy? Do they mean this? Are they in control? That trust is constructed or dismantled by your mastery of tone, message, and energy. Energy is vital. A voice devoid of energy cannot motivate. You need not be loud, but you must be alive. Your voice must carry belief. It must demonstrate that you are fully present within your words. Otherwise, even the best ideas will fall flat. Leadership also requires managing your emotional triggers. When pressured, challenged, or provoked, you must hold your ground without your voice cracking or escalating. If your voice fractures under pressure, people will doubt your stability. They may respect your knowledge, but they will not follow you into difficulty. Command means maintaining calm when circumstances unravel. That calm is what others remember and lean upon. When your voice is trained, your leadership sharpens. You speak with focus. You lead with palpable presence. People feel they are in the company of someone who speaks not to be heard, but because they have something essential to say. Therefore, take your voice seriously, not as a performance tool, but as an instrument of influence. Train it daily. Reflect. Record yourself. Seek candid feedback. Adjust until your tone reflects strength and clarity. Practice speaking under pressure. Practice holding your ground without raising your voice. Cultivate a voice that calms, moves, and earns respect without ever demanding it. For before anyone will follow you, they must first listen. And before they listen, they will assess your voice, not your accent or vocabulary, but the presence, energy, and command behind it. When your voice reflects discipline, purpose, and steadiness, people feel safe. They feel confident. They begin to trust your leadership, not because you told them to, but because your voice has proven it worthy of trust. That is how you lead. That is where leadership becomes real. Before you ask others to follow, ensure your voice is prepared to guide, consistently, in every room, in every moment. For when your voice is steady, your leadership begins to take tangible. The ultimate test of leadership communication is not eloquence but action. Do your words move people to act? That is the entire purpose. Leadership speech is not about filling silence or sounding intelligent. It is about creating motion. A leader's words change minds, interrupt complacency, and compel steps that have been delayed. When you speak as a leader, your words must possess practical force, not emotional hype, but kinetic energy. Your speech should lead to a decision, a change, a first step. Otherwise, you are merely adding to the background noise. People are inundated with words daily, opinions, instructions, distractions. What they retain is what made them feel strongly enough to move from contemplation to action. Your role is to say what wakes people up without shouting, what reaches past the ears and into the core. This kind of speaking does not come from scripted lines, but from profound clarity of intention and lived experience. Before you attempt to influence, examine your motive. Are you speaking to impress or to impact? Are you reciting information or speaking from a place tested in reality? People discern when your words are merely data versus when they are distilled truth. Truth carries weight. It lands. And when it lands, people move. To move people, speak directly to their unresolved tension. Speak to the part of them that is weary of excuses. Address the frustration they carry silently. Speak to the decision they are postponing. You need not be poetic. You must be truthful. Truth resonates. It may sting, but it also liberates. The world is full of soft talk, encouraging people to wait, to be comfortable, to avoid strain. That is not what people need from a leader. They need someone to say, clearly and without judgment, you have waited long enough. The time for hiding is over. When someone voices the necessary truth, people awaken. You do not move people by over-explaining. State it once, state it clearly, state it with strength. Then let it reside. If you bury your point under layers of examples, you diffuse its power. Deliver it sharply, cleanly, directly. Once spoken, do not dilute it. People need clarity, not coddling. They require something solid to grasp, not something to endlessly analyze. Create intelligent urgency. People rarely move without it. Your words should carry the weight of now. Not with panic, but with compelling pressure. Illustrate what is at stake. What is lost by inaction? What is the cost of staying the same? This is not fear-mongering. It is truth-telling. Often, the most dangerous choice is to remain static. Speak in the language of your listeners. Use words they use. If your message sounds overly polished or academic, people will dismiss it as not meant for them. It must sound like it comes from someone who understands their reality. You do not need perfect grammar. You need authentic resonance. Your conviction is everything. If you do not believe your own message, no one else will. Your tone carries your belief. If you advocate for discipline while living without it, your words are hollow. But if your speech springs from your lived standards, it strikes with force. Your life must be an echo of your language. Many people are not seeking motivation. They are seeking permission to change. They want to know it is acceptable to demand more of themselves, to leave the familiar. Your words can grant that permission. They can throw the switch, but only if they are direct, real, and aimed squarely at action. Do not orbit the issue. Do not sugarcoat. Say what needs to be said. Then challenge people to do something with it. Sometimes what moves people is not inspiration, but respectful confrontation. You hold up a mirror. You name what is being avoided, not with anger, but with honesty. That moment of productive discomfort becomes the pivot point. Do not chase applause, chase progress. The room may not cheer. That is fine. If your words are true, people will sit with them. They will think, and eventually, they will move. Assume responsibility for the effect of your words. And remember, silence can be profoundly compelling. If your words are strong, you need not say much. One potent sentence, followed by intentional silence, can accomplish more than a 5-minute monologue. It gives the message space to breathe and allows for internal response. Simplify the path forward. Complexity breeds hesitation. Break the journey into a clear, immediate next step. Start today. Make the call. Write the first line. Move people from thought to decision, from intention to execution. You do not need to say more. You need to say it better. Do not crowd your message. Do not soften its edges. Speak to the heart of the matter. Voice what others are afraid to say. Identify the habits that perpetuate stagnation. That is how a leader speaks. That is how people are moved. When your words carry truth, urgency, and direction, when your delivery is calm, controlled, and certain, people cease waiting. They begin acting. Speak in a way that matters. Speak to the latent hunger for progress. Speak with enough pressure to stir people from slumber, and enough clarity to illuminate the next step. That is how you lead. That is how you earn undivided attention. That is how you compel motion, not with noise, but with language that carries irrevocable weight. And those words must originate within you, from a place that has already been moved. For what moves you will, in time, move others. Speak from that place. Speak from your standards. Speak from your scars and your hard-won lessons. That is what makes your voice distinct. That is what makes your message matter. That is what makes people. The words you choose are the architecture of your influence. People do not follow voices laced with hesitation, fluff, or ambiguity. They follow voices that speak with substance. Strong words are not necessarily harsh. They are meaningful, weighted, and evidence that you have earned the right to be heard. Every utterance either builds your credibility or erodes it. It either captures attention or is filtered out as background noise. The difference lies in your conscious choice of language. Weak words are ephemeral. Strong words are remembered. To communicate as a leader, you must grasp the impact of your diction, not merely the definition, but the tone, presence, and power it conveys. Strong words command attention through precision, not volume. When you speak with clear, robust language, people pause and listen. They sense your seriousness. They feel your conviction. You need not repeat yourself. One sentence, delivered with power and clarity, can alter the trajectory of a conversation, a meeting, or a mindset. Weak language sows doubt. Phrases like I think, maybe, I guess, or sort of dilute your message, stripping it of authority. Strong words are clean and direct. They leave no room for confusion. They demonstrate that you have arrived at a conclusion, not that you are floating a suggestion. When people hear that certainty, respect for your voice grows. If you constantly soften your speech to avoid offense or to please, you will end up saying nothing of consequence. People respect clarity. They follow those who speak truth, especially when it's uncomfortable. Strong words are about being unshakable, not aggressive. You raise your standard, not your voice. That is what makes people pay attention. Your word choice mirrors your internal standards. If your thinking is average, your language will sound average. If you demand excellence of yourself, your language will reflect that rigor. Strong words spring from a strong mindset. When your thinking is disciplined, your speech becomes powerful. People do not merely want information. They want to hear belief. They want to feel conviction. If your words are tinged with doubt, you lose them. But when you speak from your core, when you articulate what you have lived, people lock in. They can discern the difference between casual talk and anchored truth. Eliminate verbal filler. Cut the phrases that add nothing. You know, like, kind of. These create static. Leadership is about precision. One clear, unhesitating sentence is more potent than a 10-minute speech padded with empty language. Say less, but say it supremely well. To gain respect, you must first respect your own words. This means you do not speak merely to fill silence. Every sentence should have a purpose. Every word should carry intention. That is how you earn respect, not just for what you say, but for the care with which you say it. Attention is a currency earned, not given. It is not about being flashy, but about being solid. Your words should act as anchors. When you speak, your statements should endure. People should carry them forward, reflecting on them later. If your words evaporate upon being heard, you are not leading. You are blending in. The language of leadership is bold but not reckless, confident but not arrogant, and always clear. Clarity is power. If someone must ask, "What did you mean?" you have already lost momentum. People follow voices that are easy to understand, yet impossible to ignore. That is the balance. Simplicity fused with strength. No fluff, no ego, just truth delivered directly. Crucially, strong words must be earned. You cannot fabricate them. If your life contradicts your message, your words will ring hollow. This is why personal discipline is your voice draws power from your lived example. When you have embodied what you speak, you need not convince. People feel the authenticity. Build attention by ensuring your words deliver value. Before you speak, ask, is this helping someone think more clearly, act more decisively, live more purposefully? If the answer is no, exercise restraint. Leaders do not speak to fill time. They speak to create shift. When your words consistently provide value, people create mental space for you. They listen. Strong words are also inherently honest, not cruel, but truthful. You say what needs to be said. You do not obscure behind comfort. You state clearly, "This isn't working. This must change. Here is what we must do." That clarity builds respect. Not everyone will appreciate it, but they will remember it. And when people remember your words, you become a voice of influence, not by force, but by earned authority. The most distinctive voices do not speak the most. They speak the strongest. That strength emanates from self-control, forethought, and responsibility. Every room contains a cacophony of voices. What stands out is the voice that speaks with weight, depth, and clarity. The voice people stop to hear. This begins with your internal dialogue. If your self-talk is weak, your external speech will be weak. Cultivate strength within first. Banish self-doubt. Reject diminishment. Train your mind to think with fortitude, and your language will follow. Tell yourself, "I can do this. I will improve this. I refuse mediocrity." When you speak to yourself with strength, you naturally begin to address the world in the same manner. Therefore, choose your words with meticulous care. Speak with conviction. Speak with substance. Excise the soft language that wastes time and dilutes power. Speak to be clear, not to be liked. Speak to make an impact, not to break silence. Speak from experience, not theory. When your words are strong, people feel it. They listen more intently. They trust more readily. They remember. That is how respect is constructed. That is how attention is secured. Not through noise, but through strong, clear, authentic words that speak directly to what matters most. You do not need a crowd or universal approval. You need discipline. You need belief. And you need the courage to speak as someone who means every single word. That is the sound of leadership. And that is what people will follow. Not just words, but eliminate hesitant language and speak with decisive strength. This is the pivot point, not only for your communication, but for your identity. How you speak reveals how you think, and how you think ultimately determines what you become. Weak talk is more than gentle phrasing. It is the habit of speaking from a place of hesitation, fear, and self-doubt. When you consistently use this language, it begins to shape you. It becomes a part of your persona. But when you decide to excise it and instead choose to speak with resonant strength, you don't just sound different, you transform. You become sharper, more certain, more worthy of respect. People recognize when your voice carries strength. They perceive it not in your volume, but in the backbone of your words. A quiet authority enters your tone. Intention marks your delivery. Power underscores your message. This only happens when you stop diluting your speech with phrases that drain your credibility. You hear weak talk everywhere. "I'm not sure, but hopefully it works out." This might sound dumb. These phrases seep into dialogue, and each one broadcasts a subconscious message. I don't fully believe in what I'm saying. You may not intend it, but that is what is heard. Weak talk sabotages your message before it lands. It signals doubt. It creates distance. It blunts your edge. If your aim is to lead, to influence, to earn trust, such language will cost you everything. Authentic strength in your voice begins by purging the words that leak your power. You need not explain yourself to everyone. You need not shrink your perspective to avoid discomfort. You need not sound small to be agreeable. Your role is not to be liked. It is to be clear, strong, and solid. This starts by discarding every phrase that implicitly grants others permission to ignore you. You don't say, "I just think." You think it, therefore you say it. You don't lead with, "Sorry, but." You are not apologizing for having a point. You don't ask for permission with every sentence. When you speak with strength, your words stand independently. You are not pushing them. You are not pleading for attention. You are simply stating something real, without apology, without hesitation, without ambiguity. Strength is not aggression. You need not be harsh to be powerful. You need not dominate the room. True strength is calm, controlled, and steady. It is you speaking from a place of certainty, because you know who you are and you believe what you're saying matters. You've reflected on it. You've earned the right to say it. You are not performing. You are delivering something of value. When you speak with strength, people accord you a different kind of respect. They interrupt less. They challenge differently. They listen longer. Because strong words command attention. And attention is a currency earned, not given. Weak talk forfeits attention. Strong talk secures it. And once you hold someone's full attention, that is when genuine impact becomes possible. If you wish to lead, you must consciously choose the character of your voice, not its sound, but its texture, structure, and intent. Will it be padded with disclaimers and softeners, or will it be sharp, intentional, and exact? No one will make this choice for you. If you've been conditioned by environments full of indirect language, you may have adopted these habits. But habits can be broken. This is one worth shattering. Strong speech is rooted in internal conviction. If you don't believe in what you're saying, no one else will. Therefore, build your beliefs. Think deeply. Pressure test your own ideas. Once you've done the internal work, you'll cease needing to defend yourself externally. You won't need to sound loud. You'll only... And clarity is one of the most powerful forms of strength. Those who habitually use weak talk often feel invisible, unheard. But sometimes, the world isn't ignoring them. They have trained it to do so by the way they present their voice. You teach people how to treat your message. If you treat it as optional, vague, or uncertain, they will too. But when you speak with clarity and strength, people pause. They take notice. Your presence expands. There is also a matter of efficiency. Weak talk wastes time. It meanders, it circles. It uses 3 sentences where one would suffice. Strong speech is economical. It respects the listener's time. This is another way strength manifests, in how little you need to say to convey your message. When you stop trying to impress and start aiming for truth, your voice becomes cleaner, and clean voices cut through noise with greater speed. You will also feel a shift within yourself when you abandon weak talk. Your posture changes. Your energy alters. You enter a room differently, because you are no longer second-guessing yourself as you speak. You are not editing in real time. You are not bracing for judgment. You are delivering something solid, and you know it. This grants you a profound freedom, which in turn fuels authentic confidence. Weak talk is born of fear. Fear of being wrong, of being judged, of being disliked. But here is the reality. If you speak in a manner designed never to offend, challenge, or demand, your words will never be taken seriously. And if your words lack seriousness, you cannot lead. You must decide, do you want to be liked, or do you want to be effective? You cannot always be both. Leadership is not about comfort. It is about clarity and forward motion. That requires strength in communication. It means you drop the soft padding and articulate what needs to be said. You do this not carelessly, but with discipline, focus, and purpose. You do not use strength to diminish others, but to elevate them. Yet elevation does not always mean gentleness. Sometimes strength sounds like a challenge. Sometimes it sounds like a correction. Sometimes it is silence, the act of holding your ground when others expect you to fold. All of this is communication, and all of it requires shedding the weak habits that dilute your presence. Do not wait for a perfect moment to begin speaking stronger. Practice in daily conversation. Eliminate one soft phrase at a time. Replace "I hope" with "I will." Replace "I guess" with "I've decided." Replace "it might be" with "here is what I see." These small edits compound. They rewire your voice. Soon, your entire presence shifts. People notice. You notice. You begin to operate from a higher plane. You need not shout, argue, or win every exchange. You need only to show up with words that have a backbone, Words that demonstrate you've thought through what you're saying and are unafraid of pushback. When people hear that, they stop testing you and start respecting you. That is how strength speaks. Calm, clear, controlled, unshaken. You do not speak for approval. You speak because you have something real to say. The more you operate from this place, the more your leadership takes root. Not because you talk the most, but because when you talk, people know it matters. Therefore, drop the weak talk, cut the noise, excise the fluff. Speak with precision. Speak from your core values. Speak with steady confidence. Do this every time until it is no longer something you try to do, but something you are. That is leadership, and it begins with your voice. Your ability to hold your position when challenged is what separates genuine leaders from those who collapse under pressure. Anyone can speak with strength when met with agreement. The true test arrives when your beliefs, your words, or your decisions are confronted. When someone questions your voice, your message, your stance. In that moment, your presence is tested. That is when you discover the material of which your voice is made. The world does not offer you a silent audience. It offers you resistance. Your capacity to lead depends entirely on your ability to remain solid when that resistance appears. Most people fracture at the first sensation of discomfort. The instant someone disagrees, they retreat. They soften their language, over-explain, seek approval. In doing so, they surrender the strength of their voice. Leadership is not about universal agreement. It is about standing in your truth, even amidst disagreement. You do not speak to be popular. You speak because what you have to say is necessary. And if it is necessary, you do not allow pressure to distort it. People will test you. This is inevitable. They will question your tone, challenge your choices, reinterpret your message. You face a choice. Remain anchored in your clarity, or be pulled into their doubt. If you are shaken each time you are questioned, you will not endure as a leader. You will become a reflection of others' expectations, which is not leadership. It is insecurity disguised as adaptability. To hold your ground, you must know what you stand for. If you haven't done that foundational work, pressure will reveal the void. Clarity provides stability. When you have defined your values, refined your message, and chosen your direction, you do not panic under pressure. You do not scramble. You do not alter your language to placate the crowd. You remain anchored in the foundation you've built within. You cannot borrow strength in these moments. You cannot mimic another's confidence. It must be yours, forged through repetition, hardened by experience, proven by speaking when it is difficult. This kind of strength does not appear spontaneously. You train it. You develop it. Every time you maintain calm in the face of pushback, you reinforce that inner fortitude. Every time you stand firm in a belief, you grow stronger, not louder, but stronger. This is the key. Leaders do not yell to prove their solidity. They speak with calm certainty. That tone cuts through noise more effectively than any argument. People respect what does not flinch. If your tone shifts with the mood of the room, people stop trusting you. They may smile and nod, but inwardly they know you are not reliable. Respect is earned when your message remains steady under pressure. When you say the same thing in discomfort that you said in ease. To lead well, you must become comfortable with discomfort. You must be willing to be the person in the room who does not bend when others seek an exit. This is not stubbornness, it is steadiness. It signifies you have thought things through. It means you do not require unanimous agreement to speak with strength. There will be moments when your voice trembles slightly. That is human. But you speak anyway. You hold your position. You remain rooted in your truth. You do not evade tension. You meet it directly. You demonstrate that disagreement does not intimidate you, that challenge does not disorient you, that another's doubt will not become your own. This is how leadership becomes visible. Not when you deliver an inspiring monologue, but when you remain unwavering as someone tries to push you off center. Those who attempt to shake you are not always overt. Sometimes they are subtle. A raised eyebrow, a dismissive smirk, a question designed to... You do not respond with emotion. You do not overreact. You stay even. You maintain your tone. You remain respectful, but you do not move. You need not attack to defend your position. When your voice is built on truth and discipline, it requires no defense. It stands independently. You will sense when someone is testing your ground. The energy shifts. The room tightens. This is the moment when most people diminish. For you, it is an opportunity to expand, not with louder words, but with more grounded energy. People notice when someone speaks and does not flinch, when someone holds their position without defensiveness, when someone preserves clarity even as pressure mounts. That is the kind of communication people follow, not because it is flawless, but because it is solid. Real strength in communication is not demonstrated when people agree with you, but in how you speak when they do not. When you stay grounded, you teach people something. They learn you are not easily shaken. They learn your words are not based on trend, emotion, or reaction. They learn that when you speak, there is substance behind it. People follow that kind of presence. Not hype, not popularity, but palpable, reliable presence. You need not justify yourself to everyone. Some individuals wish to argue, not understand. Some seek to provoke, not discuss. That is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to remain rooted in what matters. You do not chase approval. You do not plead for support. You deliver your message with strength and allow the consequences to follow. There is a quiet power in holding your ground. You need not say much. You need not justify endlessly. Sometimes the most potent action is to stay calm and not alter a single word. That silence communicates more than 100 explanations. That steadiness speaks louder than any emotional display. As you practice this, as you build the habit of maintaining strength through disagreement, you begin to become unshakable. Not arrogant, not dismissive, but rooted, grounded, and fully present. This is what gives your leadership voice its edge. Not volume, but conviction. Not emotion, but clarity. Not control, but consistency. The world is saturated with noise, people talking over one another, reacting, performing. What stands apart is the person who speaks and holds the line, who knows their purpose, who does not unravel at the first sign of discord. That person becomes a voice of trust, a voice of clarity, a voice people return to, not because it always tells them what they want to hear, but because it always tells them what is real. You will not always receive applause. That is not the objective. The objective is respect. The objective is impact. The objective is strength. So, the next time someone attempts to shake you, do not let it work. Do not adjust your voice to match their emotion. Do not accelerate your pace. Do not shrink. Maintain your tone. Maintain your pace. Maintain your clarity. Hold your ground. That is how trust is built. That is how presence is established. That is how true leaders are recognized. Not by how they speak in ease, but by how they remain strong when tested. Hold your ground, and people will begin to believe in you, not merely in your words, but in you. And once they believe in that, you cease to be someone who merely talks. You become someone who leads. Make your point with precision, then stop. This is a habit every powerful communicator cultivates. For in leadership, your value is measured not by the quantity of your words, but by their catalytic quality. You do not require lengthy speeches to establish credibility. You do not need to repeat yourself to be understood. You do not need a surplus of examples to ensure comprehension. When you speak with clarity, one sentence can be sufficient. When your thoughts are organized, you do not ramble. When your presence is strong, you rely on precision, not duration. People possess finite attention. In truth, most are distracted before you begin to speak. When you talk, you are competing with their internal dialogue, their devices, their concerns. If you stretch your message, if you circle your point, they disengage. And once they disengage, your influence evaporates. Not because your idea lacked merit, but because it was lost in a sea of words. There is a critical distinction between being thoughtful and being long-winded. Thoughtful speech is direct, clear, and structured. Long-winded speech is messy, slow, and uncertain. The more words you use, the more opportunities you create to weaken your message. Every extra sentence adds a layer that can confuse the listener. Therefore, adept communicators trim the excess. They say what is essential. They stop speaking and allow the message to land. Over-explanation is frequently a symptom of doubt. When people are uncertain of their message, they append details. They attempt to safeguard it with more information. They try to control how it is received. But leadership does not function this way. You cannot control perception. You can only control your delivery. If you deliver with confidence and clarity, you require no backup explanation. You state it, you trust it, you allow it to speak for itself. Another reason people over-explain is fear of being misunderstood. They believe more words provide safety. Yet more words do not always yield greater understanding. Sometimes they generate obscurity. When you say too much, your central idea becomes buried. The listener fixates on tangential comments. They miss the purpose. You have created confusion where clarity could have reigned. Leadership communication is about clarity, not control. Speak the truth and permit it to stand independently. If you wish to be listened to consistently, become someone who does not waste time, neither your own nor anyone else's. People should know that when you speak, they will receive value. They will hear something that matters. They will depart with a lucid understanding. This only occurs when you discipline yourself to reach the point and remain there. No detours, no filler, no verbal padding, just truth, delivered with strength. Arriving at the point does not necessitate coldness or harshness. It means you respect people's time enough to be efficient with your language. It means you have considered what needs to be said and what does not. It means you are not speaking to fill space, but to create movement. You also build respect through concision. When you make your point and cease talking, people lean in. They take notice. Because they are accustomed to vagueness stretched thin. When someone concludes with sharp, clean precision, it feels different. That difference earns attention. There is inherent strength in brevity. The more certain you are, the less you need to say. If you are secure in your message, you need not pile on verbiage. You deliver it and stand behind it. The power emanates from simplicity and the discipline to say just enough, never too much. This requires work. It demands practice, but it is worth the effort. For those who master this skill, become the voices people seek when clarity is most needed. You should never feel compelled to convince everyone. That urge is the origin of most over-explanation, the need for acceptance. But leadership is not about universal acceptance. It is about delivering what is necessary. Some will agree, some will not. That is acceptable. You do not require everyone's approval. You require the right people to understand. And that only happens when you refrain from diluting your message with extraneous layers. When you speak, interrogate each sentence. What is the purpose of this phrase? If it does not advance the message, discard it. If it exists only to soften impact, reconsider it. If it aims to protect your ego, replace it. Speak with intent, clarity, and courage. That is what people wish to hear. Not a safe, sanitized version of your truth, but the genuine article, spoken clearly and concisely. Each time you speak, you are training people how to listen to you. If you ramble, they will tune out. If you are sharp, they will lean in. If you repeat yourself needlessly, they will assume you doubt their comprehension. But if you state something potent once and then stop, they will contemplate it. They will respect you more. They will listen more attentively next time. Do not mistake clarity for oversimplification. You can be clear and still speak with depth. You can express something profound in a brief sentence. In fact, the more vital your point, the greater the imperative to make it clean, because complexity often obscures impact. Simplicity reveals it. Recall the strongest voices you've encountered, the ones that move you. They did not offer 10 examples. They did not speak in circles. They made a clear point with calm strength, and then they stopped. The pause following a potent statement creates space for the message to settle. It allows the listener to reflect. Impact occurs not while you are still talking, but in the silence you leave afterward. Understand your audience. If you are speaking to people well-versed in the topic, do not over-instruct. Do not explain what they already know. Respect their intelligence. Speak to the next level of insight. If you are addressing those unfamiliar with your subject, explain only what they require, not everything you know. Do not overload. Guide. Authentic communication is not about saying everything. It is about saying the right thing at the right time in the right manner. This necessitates trimming, cutting, and sharpening. Before you speak, clarify your point internally. Know your destination before you open your mouth. This internal clarity translates to external confidence. That is what makes your message land. There is no prize for speaking the longest, no award for the most words. The reward lies in being understood, in creating impact, in helping someone think more clearly, act more decisively, decide more swiftly. This happens when you deliver your point with strength and discipline, when you strip away the extras and trust your message to perform its work. If your message is true, it requires no decorative excess. It needs no backup explanations. It needs no endless support. It needs clarity. It needs belief. And it needs you to stop speaking once you have said it. Speak to move. Speak to guide. Speak with strength. Say what matters. Then stop. Let the silence accomplish the rest. That is how leaders speak. That is how voices gain authority. That is how influence is constructed, not through long orations, but through words that signify something, spoken clearly and left to reverberate in the mind. Speak not merely to be heard in the moment, but to be remembered long after. This is where genuine influence originates. Talking is common. Everyone does it. The world abounds with voices, noise, and endless dialogue. But to be remembered, that is distinct. That requires purpose. That demands intention. That calls for discipline. People hear thousands of words daily, yet only a handful persist in their memory. The words that endure are those that meant something, those that were clear, direct, and delivered with weight. When you speak as a leader, your goal is not to fill the air, but to leave an imprint. You want your words to reside with people long after you have left the room. To be remembered, you must say something worth remembering. This means eliminating shallow talk. Do not speak merely to react. Do not speak merely to display knowledge. Speak because you have something substantial to contribute, something that assists, shifts perspective, ignites a decision, leaves the listener in a better state than before they heard you. This caliber of speech necessitates forethought. You do not improvise carelessly. You do not speak simply because it is your turn. You speak when you possess something of consequence. And when you do, you deliver it with strength. Your voice is your signature. People may not recall every sentence you utter, but they will remember how you made them feel. They will remember if you caused them to pause. They will remember if you provided a new standard. They will remember if your words helped them break free from delay, confusion, or fear. That is what being remembered entails. It is not about entertainment. It is about elevation. Speaking to be remembered begins with crystalline clarity about what you believe. People remember conviction. They remember certainty. If you are unsure, your message will fade. But if you speak from what you have lived, from what you know deeply, from what has shaped you, it adheres. You need not speak louder, you need to speak authentically. That is what penetrates the noise. You do not require perfect sentences to create impact. You need truth, raw, tested, genuine truth. You need a message that is simple yet strong. Do not complicate what should be clear. Do not attempt to sound impressive. Express it as people think. Express it so they can carry it into their day. The easier your message is to retain and repeat, the more powerful it becomes. For people will not only hear it, they will share it. How your voice begins to travel. Your words should live in someone's mind long after the moment has passed. They should echo in their decisions. They should challenge their excuses. They should remind them of what is significant. You do not achieve this result through passivity. You achieve it by selecting every word deliberately. You achieve it by respecting your message enough to articulate it correctly the first time. You achieve it by being bold enough to voice what others hesitate to say. The reality is, people are hungry for words that signify something. They are weary of artificial inspiration, superficial talk, and vague advice. They desire clarity. They desire potency. They desire someone to articulate what they have been thinking but could not express. They desire someone to speak to their potential, not their comfort. That is your role. You fill that void. You provide the words they didn't know they needed. Being heard is about presence. Being remembered is about purpose. You must know why you are speaking. What do you want your listeners to carry away? What shift are you attempting to create? What decision are you calling them toward? If you are unclear about this, you will speak in circles. You will use 10 sentences where one would. But if your message is sharp, your delivery becomes automatic. You will not need to force impact. It will be inherent in your words. You do not require a stage to speak with meaning. Every conversation is an opportunity to be remembered. Every message, every meeting, every moment where people are listening, that is your chance. That is where your leadership expands. And it expands most rapidly when you cease trying to sound impressive and begin striving to speak truth, authentic truth, without performance, without filler, just solid, honest communication. Craft your sentences cleanly. Make your message simple. Make your presence strong. That is how you build a voice that matters. That is how people begin to repeat your words to others, not because you requested it, but because it stuck, because it resonated, because it was real. Do not be the person others forget 5 minutes after a meeting concludes. Do not be the one who fills time with empty talk. Be the one who shifts the atmosphere with one crystalline sentence. Be the one who changes the dynamic, not with emotion, but with authority. Be the one whose message lingers in someone's mind the next morning. That is what leadership communication accomplishes. It does not fade. It endures. It is not about ornate language. It is about potent delivery. It is about knowing your words possess weight and treating them accordingly. Do not waste your words. Do not repeat yourself unnecessarily. Do not speak in circles. Do not deviate. Remain on message. Make it land. Make it significant. Even in casual conversation, speak as someone who respects their voice. Speak as someone who knows their message could be the catalyst that lifts another person. Speak as someone who has constructed their beliefs and lives by them. That is what people remember. That is what people trust. Do not try to impress. Strive to impact. Impressions fade. Impact lasts. If you speak from your truth, your experience, your life, people will feel it. They will pause. They will reflect. And they will remember. Each time you speak, you are planting seeds. Some germinate quickly. Some grow slowly. But they grow if the message was authentic. Therefore, cease trying to say more. Begin saying what matters. Say it cleanly. Say it strongly. And then say no more. Let it echo. Let it settle. Let it live. That is how you speak to be remembered. That is how your voice becomes something people retain. That is how you lead, not with noise, but with words that cultivate your voice each day until leadership becomes your natural dialect. This is the discipline most neglect. They desire to sound authoritative when it counts, but they have not practiced in the quiet intervals. They wish to lead with command, but they have not built the habit of speaking with intention. If you want your voice to guide others, to influence, to create impact, you must train it as a skill, not occasionally, not when convenient, but daily. For leadership does not emerge spontaneously. It is constructed through consistent repetition. You do not become powerful by accident. You become powerful by design. Your voice is an instrument. The more you hone it, the more precise it becomes. The more you employ it with awareness, the more it aligns with your intent. But if you speak without discipline, your voice loses structure. It becomes reactive. It is shaped by emotion rather than clarity. Therefore, the work occurs in daily conversations, the ordinary moments when no one is watching. When you are alone with your thoughts, explaining an idea, speaking up, offering correction, providing guidance, or simply maintaining a steady tone. That is the training ground. That is where strength is forged. If your voice is firm only when you are calm, but fractures under discomfort, you have not trained it sufficiently. If your message is clear only in the absence of pressure, but dissolves into rambling when questioned, it has not been tested enough. Leading with your voice means you have developed it to function reliably in any room, under any pressure, with any audience. This does not derive from theory. It arises from daily commitment to improve how you speak, how you deliver, and how you connect. Begin by being intentional each time you speak. Be conscious of how you sound. Are you speaking too rapidly? Are you using filler words? Does your tone match your message? Are your sentences clean? This is not about perfection. It is about awareness. Awareness catalyzes growth. The more you notice, the more you refine. Speak as if it matters, even in casual exchange. Speak as if you are leading, even with one person. Speak as someone who owns their voice, not as someone hoping it will land adequately. You do not require a platform to train your voice. You require discipline. You require consistency. Practice during phone calls. Practice while giving feedback. Practice when making requests. Mean what you say. Speak with purpose. Eliminate excess. Remain present in your tone. This is the diligent work most avoid. They wait for the significant moment, the major opportunity, believing they will rise to the occasion. But if you have not trained, pressure will expose your limitations. It will not reveal your best. It will reveal your gaps. And you cannot repair those gaps in the moment. You must address them beforehand, when no one is observing. Your voice reflects your thinking. If your thinking is clear, your words will follow. Therefore, training your voice also entails training your mind. Accustom yourself to thinking in simple, strong statements. Train your thoughts to focus. Eliminate mental clutter. Discipline your internal dialogue so your external communication becomes sharper. Then when it is time to speak, you are not constructing clarity in real time. It already exists. You are simply giving it expression. You must also become comfortable with silence. Part of training your voice is learning when not to speak. Pauses are significant. The stillness between your words carries presence. Most fear silence. They rush to fill the void. But if you have trained your voice, you understand that silence is an element of your strength. It allows your words space to breathe. It lets your message. It demonstrates you are in command, not only of what you say, but of when you say it. You can train your tone as you would train physical posture. Speak with a grounded tone, not too high, not too soft, simply steady. You are not attempting to sound like someone else. You are discovering your authentic voice, the one that holds authority without requiring increased volume, the one that speaks directly, without hesitation. You develop this through practice, through repetition, through vocalizing until your voice internalizes what strength feels like. It is not solely about content. It is about delivery. If your voice trembles, people notice. If your words drag, people disengage. If your tone sounds uncertain, they question your message. But if your voice is trained, it becomes effortless. It becomes natural. People may not consciously recognize you are leading. They simply follow because you have established a rhythm, a tone, a presence that guides without demanding. Training your voice also builds confidence, not counterfeit confidence, but earned confidence, the kind that emerges from repetition. You know how you sound. You know how to remain calm under pressure. You know how to convey your point without becoming lost. This self-assurance manifests in your speech, and people perceive it. They may not articulate why they listen to you. They simply do, because your voice implicitly tells them they can. There will be days you do not feel strong, days of fatigue, days of uncertainty. That is when your training sustains you. That is when the habits you have constructed engage. You need not feign strength. You have already practiced it. You have spoken with clarity when you did not feel like it. You have maintained your tone when it would have been easier to relent. That is the power of training. It builds consistency, so your leadership does not depend on your mood, but on your preparation. You cannot forge a strong voice by evading difficult conversations. You build it by entering them, not with arrogance, but with intention and composure. You do not raise your voice to secure attention. You raise your standard. And when you speak, that standard is transmitted. People hear the difference. They hear the work behind your tone. They hear the thought behind your message. They hear the truth behind your delivery. That is what enables your voice to lead. When you train your voice daily, you cease trying to lead. You simply lead. It integrates into your identity. You no longer consciously consider tone. You inhabit it. You do not contemplate structure. It flows naturally. You do not second-guess your words. You speak from alignment. That is the objective. Not to impress, not to perform, but to be so practiced, so grounded, so consistent that leadership manifests without exertion. Remember, your voice is an expression of your character. How you speak reflects what you have built internally. If your words are honest, your tone will be steady. If your message is true, your delivery will be strong. If your purpose is authentic, your presence will follow. But all of this must be cultivated. There are no shortcuts, no facades, only daily work, daily progress, daily clarity, one sentence, one conversation, one adjustment at a time. That is how your voice matures. That is how your presence deepens. That is how your leadership becomes undeniable. Not because you spoke the most, but because you trained the most. Because you respected your voice enough to build it daily, until one day you speak and people follow. Not because they were instructed to, but because they are compelled to. Because your voice did not push, it drew them in. Because it did not perform, it guided. Because it did not waver, it led. And that is when your voice transcends mere. It becomes influence. It becomes power. It becomes leadership, natural, strong, and resonant. What you have in your hands is more than a set of techniques. It is an operating system for a new way of being. To talk like a leader is not an act you put on for important meetings. It is the character of your communication, woven into the fabric of your daily life. It is the cumulative result of the choices you make about every single word you utter, to others and to yourself. This journey begins and ends with a simple but profound shift. You stop using language to describe your world, and you start using it to create it. Your voice is not a passive reporter of your thoughts. It is an active architect of your reality, your relationships, and your results. When you speak with ownership, clarity, command, and compelling force, you are not just conveying information. You are shaping perception, building trust, and charting a course for action. The 10 disciplines outlined here are not sequential steps, but interdependent strands of a single cord. You cannot be clear without conviction. You cannot compel action without clarity. You cannot hold your ground without a voice under command. This is holistic work. On days you master one, another may challenge you. That is the practice. Leadership is not a state of permanent arrival. It is a commitment to a consistent direction of travel. Remember, the goal is not to become the loudest voice in the room, but the one that carries the farthest. It is to build a voice of such substance that silence often speaks louder than your words, and your words, when you choose them, become events that people mark time by. You now possess the framework. The transformation occurs in the repetition, in the daily, deliberate choice to own your words, to sharpen your message, to steady your tone, to speak what moves, to choose strength, to stand firm, to be concise, to be memorable, and to treat your voice as the foundational instrument of your influence. Do not wait for permission, a title, or a stage. Your next conversation is your training ground. Your next sentence is your opportunity to lead. Start now. Speak not as you have, but as the leader you are becoming. For when your voice changes, everything around you begins to change in response. This is how you build a legacy, one true word at a time. This is how you talk like a leader. Final note, the continuous practice. A leader's voice is never finished. It is a living instrument, refined by challenge, tempered by feedback, and strengthened by use. The work does not conclude, it evolves. Stay a student of your own impact. Listen to recordings of yourself. Seek candid feedback. Observe the reactions your words create. The most powerful leaders are perpetual apprentices to the art of influence. Your voice is your signature in the world. Make it bold, make it clear, make it true, and then